portal and select on Blueprints, which is one of the Azure services. Now, I don't know if you remember, but from our last session, I spoke about preview and how services within Azure are typically rolled out through the Azure lifecycle. So Azure Blueprints has been out for around, I think, a few years really, but it's still relatively new. So there are still bugs in there. And I've used Blueprints on a project before on a larger scale. So we actually implemented this using PowerShell, which is Microsoft's scripting language, basically. So you could even use it on a Windows machine if you wanted to, but that's Windows PowerShell. Um, so what I will show you is how to create a blueprint using the Azure portal just to get started so it doesn't look so complicated. And what we're going to do is essentially create a resource group. So remember, a resource group is kind of like a template, like a container where you would put all of your or deploy all of your resources that are necessary to whatever your project goal is. So the first step, and you can even see it on the screen, is to create a blueprint. So a blueprint definition. So what you would do is click on create. And I've already created a couple, but I want to show you actually from scratch how to create one because I think that would be more beneficial. So what we will do is create a blank blueprint and we will just call it blueprint 3 because I think I have like 2. And what you could do is create a description, and obviously for an actual project, you would call it something related to your project, or maybe even add in the environment, whether it's for a testing environment or production, pre-prod, something like that. Then the next step is to add in a location if you don't want to add a description. And what I will do is select the subscription that I wish to associate this with. So this is where all of my blueprint definitions will be held. And I'll just click on select and move on to artifacts. Actually, yeah, okay. So what I will do now is select in this subscription, what do I want to essentially create? Now, what I'll do is select add artifact. And if I click on the drop down, what I will do is select resource group because remember I said I want to create a resource group. So why is this a good thing? Well, if you want to deploy this same sort of concepts of creating a resource group and some other resource components to a particular environment, then you'd create a blueprint definition, which is your artifacts. And then what you can do is then deploy it to an environment, and then you can deploy it to another environment. So you have consistency. So if you want to create something in test, but obviously you want to deploy it to production, then you have the ability to create something and deploy the same uh, infrastructure to every single environment. So it's like infrastructure as code, basically. So I'll select resource group. And what you can do here is you can, again, add tags if I wanted to. So I could add a tag such as contact. And normally people would, in projects, you would add your contacts. So say, for instance, some of your resources were to go down, then who would you contact? You could contact your operations team so that they could have a look at it and investigate and try to um, resolve the issue. So I could add a tag value and put, for instance, my own name, my own email address, just as a example. And you can specify the location within the blueprint assignment phase, which I'll show you soon. Or you could just leave it in so that it always gets assigned to that particular location. Is up to you. So what I'll do is select add. and I can add in something else if I wish to. So now you can add in anything you want, any resource you like. So if you want to add in, for instance, a virtual machine, then what you can do is add in the ARM template, which is a JSON uh, uh, template or code that Microsoft actually can give you as a template, and then you can change it if you want to, and you just paste it in here. And what that basically will do is create the virtual machine for you. But to keep things simple, I'm just going to create a resource group and add in a policy assignment, which was what Dan discussed earlier. So what I will do is look for one that's already been created, and I would go for allowed locations. So this is something already built in, so that means it's been created already by Microsoft, and I will select add. Okay, so another thing that I can do is I can edit the artifact and I can select the value that I want. So allowed locations, I could put East US or anything I like really. So I'll just leave it like that and press save. So now that I have my blueprint, what I can do is save this, which it is doing right now. So if I go ahead to blueprint definitions, you'll see that I have, like I said, a couple of other blueprints that I created earlier today, but this is the one that we just created together. Now, by default, it saves it in draft, which means you cannot assign anything to this blueprint because it's not in the published phase. So it hasn't been published yet. So which you can see over here, it says unpublished, yes. So we want to publish this. So what we will do is head over to the three dots on the right of our blueprint and click on Publish Blueprint. And it's really important to type in your version. So this is important because if you decide to update your blueprint definition in the future, then obviously you would want to assign your blueprint to the latest version. So this is the first one, so I'll probably just start with 1.0 and click on publish. Now you can see that our blueprint is in the published phase. So now that is done, we can go ahead and assign our blueprint. So again, we head over to the three dots on the right and we select Assign Blueprint. So for the blueprint assignment name, I could just leave it as default if I want to. I can specify some parameters, so the location that I want to assign this West US, and leave the version as blueprint 1.0. And it tells you over here what we are essentially assigning. So what we would need to do is type in the values. So for this resource group name, I'll just name it, what did I name the other one? Yeah, so I'll name it BPRG 3 and leave the location as what I had initially left it as. And I'll hit assign. So what's good about this is if I want to assign this again, but to something else, I have the ability to do so because the artifact is the same. The artifact is there. All I need to do is change what parameters I want to make it different, the parameter values. So what it's going to do now is create the deploy the resources. So if I go to my status says assignment succeeded and it shows you the resources it created, which was basically the resource group and a policy assignment. And yeah, there it is, there's the resource. And if I go back to blueprints, it says succeeded. But obviously this is a very simple example. but it's something that could be used to create landing zones. So creating your virtual network, your subnet, your resources within it, as well as your network connectivity, such as your express route circuit, and stuff like that. Okay, if there's no questions.